This is the story of Chang-sik, a man whose life seemed to teeter on the edge of exhaustion. Back then, he was in his early 30s, though the years felt heavier, etched into the lines creeping across his forehead. Sales wasn't just a job, it was a relentless beast, clawing at him with every forced smile, every handshake, every late-night call that left him staring at the ceiling. I know it too well myself now, running from one meeting to the next, a lone soldier in a war of charm and persistence. It's a grind that doesn't let up, tougher than anyone on the outside could guess. For Chang-sik, 4 or 5 years in that trench had piled the stress so high it was a second skin, a weight he carried everywhere. When the days grew unbearable, he'd seek out his seniors, grizzled veterans of the same battlefield. They'd huddle in some rundown bar, the air thick with cigarette smoke and the sour tang of spilled beer. "People wear you out," Chang-sik would mutter, his voice rough, eyes distant as he swirled the dregs in his glass. They'd grunt in agreement, offering no solutions, just the quiet solidarity of shared scars. But then, one unremarkable night, the universe threw him a lifeline. It was a nothing special gathering. Colleagues, acquaintances, a blur of half-familiar faces in a cramped room buzzing with chatter. She walked in, unassuming, her presence like a breeze cutting through the stale heat. They talked, small things at first, the kind of words that don't mean much until they do. Drinks flowed, laughter spilled out, and then, bam, it hit him. She wasn't loud or polished, but there was something raw, something pure in her gaze, her unguarded smile. It grabbed Chang-sik, sunk its hooks deep, and wouldn't let go. Chang-sik couldn't shake her from his mind. That first night lingered like a melody he couldn't unhear, her voice echoing through the fog of his exhaustion. He liked her, really liked her, and that was enough to set him in motion. A month later, he was plotting, cornering a friend over lunch with a sheepish grin. "Set something up, yeah? I need to see her again," Chang-sik urged, his tone eager. His buddy smirked, but obliged, and soon Chang-sik was weaving excuses into his days, grabbing coffee near her office, lingering at events she might attend. He chased her with the quiet determination of a man who'd forgotten how to hope, until one evening, under the soft glow of streetlights, their laughter synced, their hands brushed, and it clicked. "Let's date," Chang-sik said, the words tumbling out bold and unguarded. She nodded, her eyes bright, and just like that, they were a couple. Work had carved hollows into him, years of rejection, quotas, and sleepless nights, but she filled them in. She wasn't a cure, not exactly, but she was a salve, soothing the raw edges with her presence. There was something real about her, a kind of unvarnished truth that shone through her words, her touch. She didn't play games or hide behind masks, and that honesty became his anchor. Their early days were a blur of small joys, late-night talks on her worn-out couch, the clink of soju glasses in tiny restaurants, the way her laugh could drown out the hum of the city. She patched Chang-sik up, piece by piece, until he felt whole again. A year or two slipped by, and the shine softened, revealing the cracks beneath. She wasn't perfect, nobody is, and Chang-sik started to notice the shadows in her light. Everything else about her was steady, her warmth, her loyalty, but there was a glitch in how she thought, a flicker he couldn't quite name. "She's borderline," Chang-sik confided to me once, leaning back in a chair, his voice low and thoughtful. "Not fully one thing or the other, just on the edge. He'd seen it in the way her mood could shift, sudden and sharp, like a storm rolling in without warning. But it didn't break her, didn't dim her core. She was still solid, still herself, and that honesty, raw and unfiltered, kept their life on an even keel. It was what hooked Chang-sik, what kept him tethered. Maybe he was mad with love, blind to the warning signs, but that realness pulled him deeper, like a current he didn't want to fight. 3 years into their dance, the word marriage started whispering in Chang-sik's mind. It wasn't a lightning bolt, more like a slow dawn creeping over the horizon. She wasn't flawless, her edges still jagged at times, but she was his. They fit, like two puzzle pieces that didn't quite match, but locked together anyway. He'd met her parents a handful of times, stiff dinners at their modest home, the air thick with polite nods and steaming bowls of doenjang jjigae. Then came the big step. One Sunday, Chang-sik took her hand, her fingers warm in his, and led her into his parents' living room. The TV flickered in the corner, his mom's kimchi stew simmering on the stove. "I want to marry her," Chang-sik said, his voice steady but his palms slick with nerves. "Please say yes." Late 30s now, he felt the clock ticking louder than ever, a little old to be stepping into this game. His dad barely looked up from the newspaper. "If it's what you want, do it," he grunted. His mom smiled, softer but pointed. "Just give us a grandkid soon," she added, her eyes twinkling. Her family didn't hesitate either, nods all around, like it was the easiest deal they'd ever closed. They picked a date, circled it in red on the kitchen calendar, and the countdown began. A month out, his mom called him over. The house was quiet, just the faint hum of the fridge as she sat him down at the worn wooden table. "Look, son," she started, her tone careful but firm. "She's got flaws. You've seen them. Marry her, sure, but live a little first. Don't rush the papers. Wait for a kid. Things can change." Her words landed like a stone in Chang-sik's gut. He bristled, heat rising in his chest. "Mom, her flaws. They're not deal breakers. I'm not hedging my bets here. This is my life." "Trust me," he shot back, his voice cracking, sharp and final. She sighed, waved him off, but he was already gone. Mentally, then physically. Chang-sik married her anyway. A quiet ceremony with just enough witnesses, signed the papers that same day, and sealed it. He didn't breathe a word of his mom's doubts to his wife. Why stir the pot when the stew was already simmering so nicely? Newlywed life unfurled like a spring bloom, sweet, messy, and full of light. Their little townhouse, with its creaky floors and mismatched furniture, felt like a kingdom. They'd cook together, her chopping onions while Chang-sik fumbled with the rice cooker, laughter bouncing off the walls. Nights were soft, curled up under a shared blanket, her head on his chest, the TV droning on about nothing. Less than a year in, she turned to him one evening, her eyes catching the dim glow of the lamp. "Honey, a favor," she said, her voice gentle but laced with something heavier. "What's up?" Chang-sik asked, shifting, curious. "Suni, my sister, she quit her job up north, wants to move here. Mom and Dad are too far to help. Can she crash with us a month or two till she gets settled?" she explained, her plea hanging there, simple but loaded. Chang-sik didn't blink. "Sure," he said, easy as breathing. "Tell Suni she's welcome. Barely know her, but I'll fix up a spot." Their place wasn't much. One bedroom, a cramped study, a living room that bled into a tiny kitchen. But he hauled out the clutter from the study, dragged in a spare bed and made it hers. Family's family, after all. Sure, Chang-sik said, the words slipping out as natural as a breath. Tell Suni she's welcome. Barely know her, but I'll fix up a spot. Their townhouse wasn't much. A modest box with one bedroom, a study barely bigger than a closet, a living room that spilled into a kitchen smelling faintly of garlic and soy sauce. He rolled up his sleeves that weekend, hauling out dusty boxes and an old chair from the study, then dragged in a spare bed with a squeaky frame. Suni arrived the next day, a whirlwind of energy with a suitcase in tow, and a grin that lit up the cramped space. She was pure fun, unscripted, loud, the kind of person who turned mundane evenings into something electric. Word got around fast. His senior at work, a wiry guy with a smoker's rasp, caught wind of it over their usual coffee break. "You're glowing, man," the senior said, squinting at Chang-sik like he was sizing up a new car. And he was. Evenings became a ritual. Chang-sik swinging by the corner shop for a greasy bag of fried chicken. The three of them, him, his wife Suni, cracking open beers around the low table in the living room. The air would fill with the crunch of batter, the clink of cans, and their laughter, spilling out the open window into the humid night. It was pure joy. Every day a little brighter with Suni's chatter and his wife's easy smiles weaving through it all. One night, they traded the chicken for a local barbecue joint, a hole-in-the-wall spot with smoky grills and sticky floors. The trio sat huddled around a sizzling plate of samgyeopsal, pouring soju into chipped glasses, the burn of alcohol mixing with the hiss of meat. His senior was there too, perched at another table, an odd duck who'd once bragged about dodging a shaman's fate with some half-baked ritual involving salt and a midnight chant. "Manager," the senior bellowed, weaving through the crowd with a lopsided grin. "Family dinner?" Chang-sik chuckled, lifting his glass. "Just soju and meat," he replied casually. He poured shots for his wife and Suni, gave the senior a quick nod, and sent him off. Sales guys, always loud, always performing, even off the clock. The night rolled on, a blur of laughter and clinking glasses, the trio lost in their bubble. Next day at work, the senior pulled him aside in the break room, the hum of the vending machine buzzing in the background. "That woman across from you last night, your sister-in-law?" the senior asked, his tone casual but his eyes sharp. "Yeah, Suni," Chang-sik said, shrugging. "You too good?" "She's settling in," Chang-sik replied. "Not staying long then?" "Few months with us," he answered. "Why the questions?" Chang-sik pressed, curious. "No big deal." The senior backpedaled, scratching his neck. "Said hi last night. She's pretty. Just curious. Don't sweat it. Sorry." He flashed a quick smile and walked off, but something in his voice left a faint itch in Chang-sik's mind, a splinter he couldn't quite dig out. Life with Suni stayed golden, a warm hum under the surface of their days. Then summer crept in, thick and sticky, and the three of them hatched a plan over dinner one night. A trip. A break from the city's concrete grip. Suni and his wife took the lead, phoning her parents for ideas, landing on a valley tucked away in the hills. "Okay, let's hit the valley," his wife declared, her eyes sparkling as they pinned down a spot and a date. Chang-sik was at work when it solidified, buzzing with anticipation as he shuffled papers at his desk. That's when his senior called him over, voice low under the office din. "What's up?" Chang-sik asked, leaning against a filing cabinet. "You know I've got a weird sense. See things most don't," the senior said, his gaze steady. "Yeah?" Sik nodded. This summer steer clear of water and heights. Serious. No sand either, mark my words, the senior warned. It sounded basic. Watch your step near cliffs, don't drown. Got it, Sik said, half laughing. I'm not a kid. Why so dramatic? But the senior's eyes shifted, darkening with that eerie intensity some folks carry like a second shadow. No water. Stay away. Hear me, he pressed, his voice firm. Okay, relax. I'm fine, Sik said, brushing it off. But as he headed for the valley, that warning stuck like damp heat on his skin. The valley stretched out before them, a quiet expanse of green and stone, its stillness broken only by the faint gurgle of the stream winding through it. Barely anyone was there, just a lone fisherman downstream and the rustle of leaves overhead. They set up camp by the water's edge, unpacking a pot for chicken stew, the savory steam rising as they splashed around in the knee-deep shallows. Sik waded in at first, the cold biting his skin, the senior's warning flickering in his mind like a half-remembered dream. It was fun, though. Suni shrieking as she slipped on a rock, his wife tugging her back up, their laughter echoing off the cliffs. But then they grew restless. Higher up's deeper, more fun, Suni said, her eyes glinting with mischief. His wife nodded, already trudging ahead. The shallow stretch felt tame now, so they climbed, finding a dammed pool, dark, deep, too low to dive but perfect for wading. Halfway there, that splinter of unease dug deeper, the senior's voice ringing louder. No water, stay away. I'll fix the food, you two play, Sik called, turning back, his boots crunching on gravel. Why, honey? Come on, his wife protested, splashing toward him. No, I feel off, cold or something. I'm out, Sik replied, shaking his head. What's wrong? Join us. Suni chimed in, her voice bright but insistent. Nope, not going. Enjoy, he said firmly, retreating to the stew pot. They shrugged, splashed a bit longer, then trudged back, damp and grinning but quieter now. The stew went down fast, spoon scraping metal, and his wife's tone sharpened. You killed the vibe. Let's go, she snapped at Sik. Guilt gnawed at him as they packed up, the ride home thick with awkward silence. Sorry, I felt weird. What can I do? Sik mumbled, glancing at her. We wanted fun, she shot back, her voice edged with frustration, and that was that. Next day, he met his senior at work. Stayed dry like you said, Sik told him, leaning against the desk. The man nodded, his expression grim. Smart move. Can't mess with family, but that's Suni. Trouble. Get her out, now, the senior warned, his voice low. Why? Sik asked, frowning. Not a psychic, just a gut punch. Be safe. Free advice, the senior replied, his eyes steady. It stuck, a nagging itch Sik couldn't scratch. Sik led, Suni behind, his wife trailing. Mid-step, that gut kick hit, the senior's words surging back. He spun. Suni's hand pressed his chest, aiming for his back, but he turned. He stumbled, grabbed the rail, heart hammering. Suni, what the hell? Sik shouted, his voice trembling with shock. Suni froze, flustered, eyes wide. Suni, what's wrong? His wife yelled from above. Movie forgotten. They bolted home. Why'd you push? I could have died, Sik demanded, staring at Suni. Brother-in-law, I don't know. Sorry, Suni stammered, shrinking back in confusion. Room, Suni, his wife snapped, her tone sharp, then softened as she turned to him. She's sick, honey. I didn't tell you she does this. Forgive her just once. Sik nodded reluctantly, but that night, lying in the dark, The senior's uncanny knack burned in his mind. Spot on. Shaman level wild, he thought, restless. Sleep came jagged, laced with unease. Days blurred. Work, drinks, home. I'm back. Suni up, Changsik called out, stepping into the quiet house. Brother-in-law. Suni's voice came from her room. Reading? Night, he replied, exhaustion in his tone crashing hard. Drunk sleep dulled him, until the doorknob rattled. His wife snored beside him. Suni? Changsik cracked an eye. Light spilled from the hall. She stood at the bed's edge, staring, silent. Then she moved, toward the tall bookshelf by the bed. She yanked it. It'd crush him. He lunged, caught it mid-fall, flipped the lights. Suni stood there, tears streaming, wordless. She tried to kill me, Changsik roared, fury boiling over. If I'd slept, I'd be dead. His wife dragged Suni off, pleading. Sorry, she'll be out soon. Not soon, tomorrow. Find a place. No arguments, Changsik snapped. She's my sister. I can't... His wife protested. Tomorrow, he cut her off. No lease came fast, but the plan was set. Next day. Place lined up. Tomorrow or next, she's gone. She's sick, forgets. I get it. But I can't live like this, Changsik declared. Night fell, sleep a battlefield. He shoved the dresser against the door. Noise'll wake me, he muttered. Dozed off, woke to it scraping, his wife pushing, Suni at the threshold, a knife glinting in her hand. Why open it? Changsik demanded, jolting awake. Thought you were up, his wife yelled, flustered. Take it, she urged, thrusting the knife toward him. He snatched it, shaking. Out now's jail, not help, Changsik warned. Morning, he called his father-in-law. Where you at? Can I come? Changsik asked over the phone. Waiting. 2 hours, his father-in-law replied. Done, Changsik agreed. At the meeting, Suni's bad, not a rental, a hospital, Changsik told him firmly. She's off. My wife too, you know. Barely shows, but yeah, the older man sighed. Hospital it is. Thanks, son, he said gratefully. Back home. Hospital, Changsik told his wife. Okay, she murmured. Checking options, his senior rang. No work? The senior asked, catching him off guard. Changsik spilled it all. Felt it. Where now? Home, Changsik answered. Store first. Talk, the senior suggested. Suni out? Day or two. Stay with me, he offered. Wife? Risky, but you were the target, the senior warned. Okay, Changsik agreed, trusting his gut. Later. Rough, but no hate for Suni, Changsik murmured to himself. Honey, no bad vibes, just right, he added, glancing at his wife. Weeks passed. Your vibe's off. She out. Escaped. The senior pressed over the phone. Not prison, no, Changsik replied. Careful, he cautioned. At the hospital. Tell me, Changsik pleaded, facing Suni. She stared silently. Never hit you. Family. Why? No answer. Why? To fix it. Tell me, he urged again. Sister told me, Suni whispered finally. She did. Said we'd die if not. Don't tell, she begged. Oh, Suni, heal will feast, Changsik promised, shaken. Back home, fear lingered. His wife denied it all. Hiking, she suggested days later. Seorak-san, chill, Changsik agreed. On the quiet cliff. Honey, how do I process this? Met Suni, tell me straight, Changsik asked, his voice heavy. Life doesn't play nice, his wife replied, dusting off and descending, her tone cold. He sat, blank till a chill. Someone behind with a rock? Down he went. Home. She was packing. How'd you get here? No car, Changsik called, stunned. Not your worry, she snapped, grabbing her things. You're leaving. Papers? Your call, she said flatly. Liked you? Maybe. Knowing this, we're done. She packed, gone. After a mess, papers untouched, Chang-sik stuck home. The senior rang. Days off. Spill it, he demanded. Chang-sik told all. Home. Your wife, not Suni. Thank me, you'd be dead, the senior said grimly. Never miss. Drink? He offered, shaking his head. Chang-sik learned how insurance nearly took him. No blockbuster, but their house topped the neighbors' frights. Who'd think? She played Suni, stairs, bookshelf, for cash. Suni kills, pleads crazy. He's gone. She grabs the money, sings. Her folks? No clue. Knew and ignored. Maybe. Hid the hospital bit. Used a sweet sister for a score. Scarier than upstairs next door. Our house. That's the name.